Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here, and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, grab a cup of tea, scotch, anyone, beer, relax. Let's talk about the Disney-Fox merger or acquisition or whatever you want to call it, because it's official now. 21st Century Fox belongs to Disney. They've swallowed it up whole and you'll never see it again. Should we read an article confirming all of this so you know what they own and what they don't? Then I can tell you a little secret how this whole thing didn't end up how Disney wanted it to. Now you know all of this already, but the media are not going over that. They're talking about 70.3 billions and the MCU and X-Men and Fantastic Four, but they're not talking about a massive failure that Disney calls for themselves within this deal. But first, let's read this out. The Simpsons, Avatar, Deadpool appear on Disney homepage after Fox deal closure. The company completed the $71.3 billion acquisition of large parts of 21st Century Fox on Wednesday. After the Walt Disney Company closed its $71.3 billion acquisition of large parts of 21st Century Fox a few minutes after midnight East Coast time. This is funny, they keep on saying large parts, right? Sky was the largest thing Fox had, and you failed to get it, didn't you, Disney? But we'll talk about that in a minute. The company's official website got a makeover and added pictures of iconic Fox properties. Characters from The Simpsons, Avatar, Deadpool, Atlanta, as well as images of IPL cricket and soccer were added to the homepages alongside characters from well-known Disney properties, Frozen, Star Wars, Captain Marvel, and Toy Story. The addition of Fox properties reflects the huge breadth and the diversity of content now under Disney's banner. They've got no huger depth or breadth of content than Warner Brothers, by the way. And in fact, Warner Brothers have probably actually got more than them. But they're trying to become a Warner Brothers. Here's the thing. They were a Ponzi little studio who made cartoons for kids, right? And now they're trying to knock everyone out of the water. But it will never happen. They will never be Warner Brothers. Never. Under the terms of the mega deal, Disney is adding the Fox Film and TV studio, the FX Network, National Geographic, Indian TV giant Star India, and Fox's 30% stake in streaming service Hulu to its portfolio. Hulu can only be watched in America. Hardly a big, strong streaming service unless they can do something different with it. We shall see. Disney has increased its stake in Hulu to 60%, with Comcast owning 30%. I didn't actually know that because I really want to talk about Comcast. This is interesting because now there's going to be a fight for the rest, the 40%. Now, I'll talk about this in a minute because Comcast have been a thorn in Disney's side, and I love it. And AT&T's Warner Media, 10% of the streaming service. So even Warner Media have got a chunk in this. So it's very unlikely that any of these companies are going to allow Disney to swallow Hulu whole. So that's going to be interesting. Disney must still sell 22 regional sports networks in the US and its sports network in Brazil and Mexico as part of the regulatory approvals in those markets. In Europe, the company agreed to sell its stakes in such networks as Lifetime and History. Yeah, I'm sure they're not going to mind about that. Oh, and here's Rupert Murdoch, who's made a lot more money than he already had, even though he's a trillionaire, right? And he's got a little stake in the Disney company and a little seat on the board. Imagine having a fascist like Murdoch. And Disney are trying to be this diverse company, equal rights, female-led movies, obviously, diverse cast and all of that, right? And then you've got a fascist and a sexist like Murdoch. Literally, they've done a deal with the devil. Because the problem is here that Disney are a bastardized company. They don't really do anything. They don't create anything. Star Wars, created by George Lucas, not them. Swallowed it whole. Marvel Studios, not created by them. Marvel Studios was created before they even bought that studio, right? It wasn't around for long before they did it, but it was still there, and it's literally run by other people. They just own it. Then you've got Pixar, which they swallowed whole. They didn't create anything to do with Pixar. Pixar were an independent studio with very clever people, swallowed it whole. So, as I say, Disney are a bastardized company. They don't make anything of its own. They don't have any originality. So I'm going to talk about a lot more about this and what this means for them in a minute. So, as new Fox stock begins trading, Fox News takes starring role in Murdoch Empire. The assets making up the new Fox Corp took in $10 billion in revenue in fiscal 2017 and generated $1.5 billion in the next income. So we really don't need to know about all that. Basically, we know where the bodies are buried. They own the networks that I just read out to you. But obviously, for Marvel fans, for MCU fans, it's really exciting because now Disney have got their grubby little Mickey Mouse hands on the X-Men and Fantastic Four, which is key for the future of the MCU. Now, we're all going to be asking the question eventually, what's going to happen? A critic was saying they should leave the X-Men alone, rest it for 3 years. That's never going to happen. This is a greedy, greedy company. They didn't spend the past umpteen years negotiating and trying to fend off Comcast so they can rest X-Men for 3 years. So that's not going to happen. Kevin Feige will be going to work on that straight away. Personally, it would be an idea to actually keep X-Men on their own. But he's going to want to mingle them all eventually. I think maybe Fantastic Four will probably be part of the MCU, but I think X-Men will be kept separately. Then they'll get them together in one big, fuck-off movie so they can build it up. That will be my assumption. So let's talk about this. Everyone's so happy about this. Well, not everyone. I'm not. I think for Hollywood and competitiveness and Disney's dominance, it is not a good thing. But before you all get excited, Mickey Mouse fans, it didn't really end up the way Big Boy Disney wanted it to. Because the big part of the package, the big company that I've already mentioned, Fox owned, was B Sky B. Disney were desperate to acquire this as part of the deal. But Comcast were passively aggressively outbidding Disney, and Disney had to keep on coming back, which really, basically, Disney spent a lot more money than they thought they were going to do, especially with trying to fend Comcast off. In the end, they did an agreement with Comcast. If Comcast didn't try and get the whole company, they'd allow Comcast to get really what they wanted, because Comcast really weren't interested in the other properties that Fox owned. They were desperate for B Sky B. So what happens is, basically, Comcast said, listen, this isn't going to end unless you let us have B Sky B. So basically, they had Disney by the nuts. They had Bob Iger by the nuts. They had no choice, Disney, because Disney were desperate to get Fox, right? Now, of course, they want the Marvel properties to unite them. That's very important because that can make the biggest IP in film history even more money and even more dominant. So that was vital. But they needed the networks that they've acquired as well for their streaming service because they are going to war with Netflix. They're going to try and defeat Netflix, but it's impossible. They can't. Because Netflix does something completely different. And Disney can never go toe-to-toe with Netflix. It will never, ever happen. And those of you who think it can happen, you are wrong. So basically, they lost big time because Sky was one of their major targets. And they didn't get it because Comcast outmaneuvered them. Now, Comcast owns Universal Studios. Now, this is really important now because Universal Studios is back on the march. It was behind, but Comcast bought it, and they're really raising the stakes, and they're really getting close, and they're competing with Warner Brothers and Disney now. So if you didn't know that, Universal are the third largest studio in Hollywood right now. They're massive, and of course, they own NBC Universal, the NBC network as well. So they've always been quite a large company, but since Comcast grabbed them, they're being really competitive. And ultimately, what I'm trying to say to you is, you may be seeing all these sites saying, yeah, Disney, 70.3 billion, blah, blah, blah. But you've got to accept the fact that Disney lost here bigger than they thought they were ever going to acquire. Yes, they have a diverse kind of content now. They own a lot more kind of IPs now, networks, yes. But ultimately, they still can't compete with Warner Brothers. For example, Warner Brothers have got HBO. HBO is massive, and HBO is just keeps on creating original content. You know, Disney can never get close to that. But Warner Brothers have got so much under their belts. But what it is, Disney want to become bigger than Warner Brothers. Now, you're going to turn to me and say, yeah, but MCU makes more money, blah, blah, blah. The MCU do really well and make more money than the DCEU. Yeah, but it's not just about that. It's not just about superheroes or comic books. It's about the whole package. And the whole package of this is that they wanted the law. They wanted Sky, because if they got Sky, their streaming service really could have stuck it to Netflix. But now they can't. They can't have that. So Comcast beat them. Sky B belongs to Comcast and belongs to Universal Studios. That's going to be interesting in the battle against Disney as well. So although a lot of people are saying this is bad because it makes them more dominant, actually, now if you remember the build-up to this deal, before we found out they weren't going to acquire Sky B, this was called the biggest acquisition of all time. It was going to make Disney the biggest studio. Guess what they're not saying? You heard me read that. Did they say once that this makes them the biggest studio? No. Because basically, these shills are singing the Disney song, but the real people, the intelligent people like me and you, know the truth. That Disney lost out. Disney lost out to acquiring Sky B, which pretty much makes this a little pointless deal. Because basically, 30 years ago, 20th Century Fox was probably one of the biggest studios, if not the biggest. As a kid, they had the biggest IPs, they were making loads of films, they were massive. So 30 years ago, if Disney acquired 21st Century Fox, this would have been unprecedented. But at the end of the day, this isn't unprecedented, it isn't a big deal, it makes them slightly stronger, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything, it's business as usual. They've got their IPs that they wanted. They've got Fantastic Four. They've got X-Men. They can make the MCU a bigger thing because it's dominant already. But, you know, if you think this is some big victory for Disney, you would be wrong, my friends. And I'll see you on the next video.